Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first in our new Seven Questions with series, hosted by Seven Community in partnership with Photoinks. And I'm really excited about this new series because we're going to feature conversations with curators, editors, and publishers. I think this is the people that our community members want to meet kind of the most. And with them, we're really going to explore what inspired them. Kind of, we're going to explore their background, their stories of success, but also stories of failure, let's say, and what they kind of learned from them, and other topics such as kind of pitching, such as what's on trend now in documentary photography, and what kind of really keeps them motivated and inspires them daily. And I'm really, really happy that we can welcome again Laura Covelli from Lodi, Italy. She's the exhibitions curator of the Festival of Ethical Photography. She also manages part of the World Report Award, which was open until last month and is then kind of exhibited during the Festival of Ethical Photography in Lodi, in Italy. And she's also engaged in education, teaching, and just kind of leading panels, working with photographers. She has an incredible background as well. So, Laura, I'll let you kind of tell us a bit more first about how you kind of enter the world of photography and like what brought you to the Festival of Ethical Photography, perhaps.
Thank you, Nika. Thank you so much. It's really great to be back with the Seven family today. So thank you for the invitation. Well, I really have to say that, my path, like that brought me into photography, started probably more than 10 years ago, even if photography was like in my life since I was really little. Will tell that. And I got to know about this festival of ethical photography here in Italy by chance because I was working as an assistant for a photographer in the US, and he mentioned that close to the city where I was born, there was this festival. And so, as many of us entered as a volunteer, I started to work in the educational programs, and I started to work as a translator in the content. And after a few months, I actually got in touch with the artistic direction of the festival. And back then, the festival, which was founded in 2010, was very small. Like at the beginning, we only had 3 exhibits. But year after year, the festival grew exponentially, and it really became a very important event, and usually one of the most attended photography festival in our country, basically. So after that, I've changed like several positions until I became, like a few years ago, the exhibit curator for the event.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I'm always kind of grateful to have you with us in the community and kind of to share your knowledge from also the curatorial background. We know that so many of documentary work now is also exhibited, so I'm really happy we get to speak to curators, not only editors, because I think now part of the documentary scene, let's say, it's very visible in festivals as well in some of the galleries, and yeah, we could say that part of the stories kind of move to galleries instead of are published being published in the magazine, perhaps. But yeah, just to also tell the community, if you have additional, obviously, we will ask Laura 7 questions. That's why our new series is called Seven Questions with. And I would just encourage you also to post your questions as well in the comment section, because after we finish with the 7 questions, obviously Laura is also here for you. She's always open to your questions. So you can either type them in the comments, or I will send you then later an invite link to join us as a speaker as well, if you will want to kind of have a question live on the recording as well. But Laura, just to start, you already briefly spoke about your career and how you came to Festival of Ethical Photography. But I know you also worked in at the United Nations. I think you have quite a rich kind of background. But perhaps can you tell us a bit more about the defining moments in your career? Either the formal ones, so really linked to the professional path, or something that was self-taught that kind of excited you, or yeah, something that really contributed to your career.
Yeah, well, I have to say that there weren't, like, there were many defining moments, actually, in my careers. But yeah, I have to say that, as you told before, I didn't start, in photography during my college year. I studied foreign languages, law, international relations, politics, and I really felt like the urgency of, doing like something more. And I wasn't completely happy, like back then about, the situation my country was in, as well as the world in general. And so I really felt the urgency of being part of the solution and doing something. So I started to work in the humanitarian field, because that was, like my call, like back then. And since I entered the UN, I worked for the agency of UNICEF. I was able to work with images and communication. Back then, we worked with several photographers, and I think that I've learned how visuals can be really important in conveying like an important message, especially in humanitarian field. And so I felt like back then that images were important, and I started like to learn how to use these images. And considering that all these agencies work a lot with photographers, I've really learned a lot back then from the way they were actually like trying to reach the audience in order to tell more about what the agency was doing. And I think that what I learned back then was not only to look carefully, but also learn more about what was behind the issues, because I've worked for a while in the corporate social responsibility department. And back then I had to scrutinize companies that were giving like money to the agency in order to fund projects. And that was extremely useful for me, because it really taught me to look carefully, to ask like what's behind what we see, and understand that it's really important to use transparency when we convey a message. And that was something that I still learned back then, and I still use now in my career, because I think that as a community, as this like a part of this community, we really need to feel the responsibility of like giving back to the people that trust us. And so when we create an exhibit, or when we try to share a story, we really need to like make people trust like what we actually are sharing. And so I think that like the beginning, of my career was extremely important for me as a professional, and all I've learned, it's something that I still use like now in the work that I carry on, like here at the Festival of Ethical Photography.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now you've mentioned trust, and I know that well, trust when working it's very important. I think it has such an influence on how projects are perceived, how kind of you can work well together, how can the work develop as well. So I'm just gonna prepare this second question of ours. Let me just add it here. And it's really about trust. So you spoke about your career as well, but if we now also focus on the photographers you're working with and that you perhaps worked with in the past, what would be your advice for them how can they build trust and develop relationships with editors and publishers, especially since so much of what's happening now is really online in this kind of events and online portfolio reviews and like submitting to grants, and it's all a very digital environment. So what would you kind of suggest when we speak about that?
Well, I think that like now we are really immersed in this online environment, which can be like difficult to navigate. But at the same time, I'm very positive about that because I feel like there's plenty of opportunity to get in touch with people all over the world. Like in the past, if you really wanted to show your work or get in touch with editors, you had to go to festivals, you had to attend like workshop, and you really had to like try to find activities in presence where you had to be there in person. I think that right now the possibility of like being here today or working with all the activities that you actually like put together in order to support the photographers, well, that is something incredibly powerful that can really have an impact on the career of the photographer. So I think that we really need to be able to select like what we want to do and what kind of activities we want to attend. But I feel like we, despite all the struggles that we are going through as a community of photographers and a community of professionals in the industry, I think that there's a lot we can actually exploit. Of course, we need to show, like, we need to tell people, the photographers, to show their work thoughtfully, whether they're sharing their portfolios online or they're doing a presentation. I think that it's always important to curate every detail, make sure that, there's a good presentation, the portfolio is well organized, there's a coherent story, the information that like the photographers share complete, and there's everything that can help editors, publishers, curators to understand what they think. I also think that it's very important to make the work personal. It's important to show that the lens you're using in order to tell this story, it's something unique. It's something that you only have, it's your vision. And I think it's important to be able to convey this message. Even in emails, when we're trying to reach editors, publishers, I think that being clear, polite, and again, like being very careful to each details, it's very, very important. Of course, just because we navigate in like a really big range of activities and initiatives, I feel like photographers should be very careful when they decide like what to do, how they want to invest their time. But I think that the potential that's behind this is it's something that should be exploited, and I think that like trying to find good conversations with editors and like people in the industry is important, but also trying to get conversations with other photographers can really help to change one perspective. And so I always encourage photographers to do that and listen, because I think that from listening, you can really like learn how, like to find the good direction for your work.
Yeah, that's very true. I think sometimes just perhaps not pushing your agenda, but just yeah, listening and observing. I think it's such a great skill to have as well, and to just kind of
Yeah.
always also adapt to the environment and not kind of, yeah, always be somewhere with the agenda. I think because obviously relationships are two-sided, and I think if you want something from the editor, you also need to give, right, and to
Yeah.
listen and to be present. So I think that's a great advice. Um, and then, well, when we speak about relationships, obviously some start also with pitching a story. So, Laura, I'm sure you get a lot of kind of yeah, proposals in your email. You see a lot also people applying for the World Report Award. You're part of juries, I assume, elsewhere as well. And yeah, you're really in touch with a lot of photographers. So the next question that really would benefit our community, and I know you have prepared a little bit for the community, is a question on what's the most effective way to pitch a story. Obviously, we will get feedback from different editors, different kind of curators. Each has a different advice, and that's what I think makes it interesting. But we would really love to learn from you and yeah, just see what you believe is kind of the most effective way and what should photographers keep in mind when pitching a story.
Yeah, I'll present this really brief um, document. So I think that it's very important when you like pitch a story to think as a photographer, as a storyteller, but it's also important that you try to put yourself in the creators, editors, publishers' shoes, and try to understand what could be interesting in that specific time. Because of course, we're always looking for new stories. We're always looking for stories which can add layers to what we already have. Of course, there's like an immense production of stories right now, and I think that presenting it like in a clear way, in a very original way, and letting the editors understand why your work is important now in this particular historical period, why your story matters now, because as I said before, we receive like quite a lot of submissions, not only through our international contest, but every day. And so it's important to understand when to send it, maybe when to resend it, because I sometimes receive incredible submissions, but maybe it's not the time. And of course, it's very important to always like understand what's happening, why that story could be important now, and how maybe from that story you can probably present a different pitch that could be more suitable for like a specific publication or for a theme in a festival. And of course, I will speak like from the point of view of a curator of a festival, but I'll also like try to be like general. I think that it's always important to start with something like really strong, something that helps the editors, curators to understand what's your story about. An abstract is always great because it like we don't really have like so much time, and we really would love to have more time to dedicate to the work that we receive, but it's not always possible. So I think that having an abstract that helps us to understand what's the narrative and why this issue is so important now, why it wasn't urgent maybe like a year ago, but it is now very, very important, and it needs to be represented somewhere. So I think that that's a good start when you present a pitch. And of course, try to explain what's your perspective. Actually, as we say, we receive so many stories, and many of them are just like too similar. I think that when you see something very original, when you see something that is like the same old story, but maybe told with a very different language, a style that I've never seen before, or explored with a different vision, very well put together, like very complete, very informative as well. Well, that's something that we always value. Another thing that I've added here in this presentation is also access. Maybe it's a story that has already like been told before, but you can show it differently because you have a really exclusive access. It happens like to me quite a lot actually, that I see something that was already published maybe by other photographers, but there's one photographer that maybe like come to me and tell me, hey, yes, this is the story that we've seen, but I can tell you this in a different way because I have access to this person, I have access to this like place, and so I think that that can also like make a big difference. It's important that your research goes into deep, and we as curators understand that the story not only suit the publication or suit like our festival or it's okay for a grant, but it also demonstrates that you've understood the kind of message that we share as a festival, as a paper. And so I think that the tone in which you present the pitch is very important, and you need to demonstrate that you've understood what kind of audience we talk to and what kind of visual style that we use again in our event or in our publication. Well, it's also important to include a selection of images, of course, so that you can show your skills, but again, you can show us that you did your research. You can include like a really short portfolio. I always value when photographers, even if they include like a small series of pictures, they show me how to they write captions, for example, how they write texts, how they include quotations related to the people that they have actually portrayed, if it's possible, of course. I think that that's also like part of pitching the story. Again, it doesn't have to be something extraordinarily long. We don't want that. As I said, less is more. But I think that we really need to evaluate what we do and what you do, and we have to do it in a really short amount of time. So I think that even if it's just like a sample of what you do, it needs to be really like very well curated, very complete, and if it's possible, please mention like the source of information. If you have to include facts and figures, if you're working on environmental stories, climate change, or violence against women, whatever, always include information that can help us understand that your work goes into deep. I think it's also important the way you present your portfolio. So try to find way of doing that. So it has to be appealing and it's like to hook my attention. As I said, include all the information that are important for an editor to understand, like how you write, how you research. If you also want, like, to include maybe exhibits that where your work was shown, of course we can do that. Here we have a work of one of the students that won last year, Joachim Bayer, and the work can be shown, maybe like cropping pictures if you want like to focus on something. Again, you can include something related to what you have done, where you talked about your work, because I think that it's also something that gives value to what you do. When you present a pitch, it's also important to, be able to make editors understand that you know how to do the work. Explain how you want to maybe like you started from a small project and then you want to expand that, and so you need the support of an editor, or maybe like you need to get like a grant, and so you have to explain how you want to pursue like this new chapter. So explain how you will access the people you want to tell or the places you want to tell. I think that that's very important because that really gives the editors your like sense of seriousness and like the ability that you have to understand if something is possible, if something is feasible, or it's something like up in the air and you still need to understand like how to proceed. But I really suggest you to go, presenting a pitch with a plan, because that gives you like it gives like a better impression to the people who like need to see that. Again, be professional, concise. We receive many emails every day. So write clearly, edit the text for consistency, avoid repetition, be polite, and explain exactly where you're going. Explain the direction that you'd like to take. That's extremely important. Like towards the very end, I would probably include like a short biography, includes like what you have done, if you've done like publications, exhibits, got like awards, and make sure to express, like very clearly what you would love to do with the work, where you would like to go, and like your availability as well, because I think that if you would like to work with a paper, I think that that's important to make clear how you want to invest in that specific work. That's like a sign of being serious. And of course, I think that this is something that you should be patient, very, very patient, because it's not easy. Sometimes it's not that we don't want like to reply. Sometimes we just like overwhelmed with proposals. So it's very difficult. So try again, be stubborn, be curious. Don't think that the way you've taken it's the only one that could be actually walked. Try to find other ways to present your work if you feel that it's not understood, or make it clearer. Being versatile is like a really, really good quality, I think, because I see like so many photographers that really have great body of work, but sometimes they cannot actually send different pitches according to the papers or festivals or grants that they have selected. So I think that that's really important to understand. Maybe like submit less, but try to do something which is actually very complete and very in line with the recipient. That's extremely important.
Wonderful. Thank you for this, Laura. It was a great presentation. So I see we have quite a few community members in the audience. So if you have any follow-up question to that, please just post it in the comments. But I'm gonna go to the next question. So once they pitch a story, once you decide, okay, this is a project I want to curate, and once that project is very successful. So you probably had very successful exhibitions and partnerships in kind of throughout your career as a curator. But perhaps you could share a bit more about a project or a photographer that you've published or supported, or yeah, curated his or her work that you're really proud of, and why is that?
Wow, that's a difficult question, Nika, because it's always very, very complicated to say that. I think that some projects were extremely important for the festival because we were able to show our audience something that maybe was completely new in our country for some reason, or it was presented with a different approach. So I think that there were many photographers and many projects. Like over the last 10 years, I've curated more than 100 exhibits actually. So it's quite a lot. But I have to say that um, there's one story I am still really fond of, which is the story of a face by Mike Stieber, which is a seven photographer, that we decided to exhibit like during the pandemic here. That was a really difficult story to show, as you probably know. I'm sure that in the audience people know this story, but I felt like it was extremely important, even if it was difficult to look at, because of the themes that were actually covered, and because of um, it is difficult to look at these kind of images sometimes. But I felt like even if it was difficult, we had to be brave enough to show that story because it needed to be represented. It's something that we've seen in publications, but when you see something, in a paper or a magazine, it's very different than seeing it in a festival where you have people that decide to come here, and instead of like looking at photography quickly, they want to go into deep, they want to listen to the photographer's like words. They learn more from the story. And so I think that it's an act of courage in a certain way to show certain topics. It wasn't easy. Many people didn't feel like looking at the pictures, but I think that those who did thanked us for showing something that needs to be shown more often. So that was something that we were particularly proud of, even if it was difficult, even in the artistic direction, actually, at the very beginning. But then we felt the importance of doing that. Representation is something we really care about. We deeply care about being inclusive and giving people like the voice they need to have, and photography can help us with that. I'm particularly, in awe of photographers that are very patient and try so hard without really getting tired, without getting discouraged. And I think that one of the photographers we've exhibited a few years ago really has this characteristic. His name is Tim Smith. And he has been working on a story about the Hutterite communities in Canada and northern United States. And it took a while for him to get his work recognized. Number one, because of the issue, of course. We have many other photographers that worked on communities like the Amish, which like created incredible body of work, like Tower, for example. And so I think it's difficult to cover the stories of communities sometimes which are less represented in the narrative and less known, of course. So I think that Tim did lots of mistakes, as he says, like all the time, but he was so stubborn to continue to pitch stories, to magazines, festivals, and he's still working on that topic. Actually, it's still like something that's being close to home. Is something that we still want to develop under different perspective and under different light, not only for him, of course, but for the community, in order to kind of like go through the bias and the prejudices that are sometimes built around these communities. So I think that that was another great project that then we were able to like show in other locations in Italy, as we don't only have the festival, but we have the traveling festival as well, which exhibits that we have at the festival in other locations in order to reach a wider audience. So yeah, I think that these projects were something that we are particularly proud of. And of course, as we started with a master of photography, Eugene Richards, like one of the first editions of the festival, it was incredibly great, and we're honored to have him again, like after 10 years, when we were able to tell the story of the Arkansas Delta, the place where he traveled when he was a young photographer in the 70s. He took like incredible pictures of the sharecroppers, and back then he was working at a newspaper there in the Arkansas. And after many years, thanks to National Geographic, he was able to return to document the stories of some of the same people or new people, but most of all, the state of the country, and the fact that the civil rights movement still had like so much to do if it was the same as it was in the 70s. So yeah, I mean, I could continue for hours, Nika.
Yeah, I'm sure about that. Let me go jump to the next question because it is kind of a bit connected to what you're speaking about right now, and it's kind of about the, yeah, perhaps development of your curatorial practice.
Yeah.
So it's about how has your approach to selecting and commissioning work evolved over the years. So you spoke that you exhibit projects that are in tune with the festival's mission, but perhaps you as a curator also have a bit different approach now than you had 10, 15 years ago. So how, like, throughout your career, how can you kind of notice it? How did it evolve?
Yeah, yeah, totally, absolutely. I think that we have to change our approach as curators, like looking at what other professionals do, looking at other festivals, but also going out from the community, our community, because I think that inspiration doesn't always like come from photography. It comes from literature. It comes from poetry, music, art. So I think that over the years I've tried to use an approach which could include other visual languages, because I think that can add something to, especially when we curate exhibit paths. Of course, we mainly work with documentary photography projects and photojournalism projects. So I think that we cannot forget the importance of like the pictures. I'm a little bit skeptical when I see that the curation is a little bit more important than the pictures themselves. I think that as curator, we have to elevate the work. We are not there to, like satisfy our own desire of making things different or like showing how good we can be. But I think that it's very important to remember that we are there to elevate the work, to help create, like build a bridge between the photographer and the audience. We are not working for ourselves. We are working in order to show a story, in order to give voice to people who are not represented, to inform, to educate, and to make change happen. I think that if a story is very well told, that really triggers like a lot of initiatives. So I think that's something that we really need to remember. Um, Said that, I feel like working with the different kind of photographers has helped me as a curator to understand more about what we have to do and what we do not have to do. Because sometimes, like being in an external position, I think that we can be of great help for those who cannot see the potential of the work and how it can be presented actually. So I think that it's an ongoing conversation, but I feel like in order to entertain people, sometimes I'm a little bit worried about using this word, but that's what we have to do, especially with the younger generations. I think that we really need to find other ways of presenting the work in order to be inclusive, in order for the work to be attractive for everybody. Because we are working with very different audience, and if we really want like the work to reach everybody, we really need to explain what we do. And sometimes I feel like adding something can help. Not always. It really depends on the work, but I think that contaminations it's something I'm really valuing um, recently.
Thank you, Laura. I think, well, when we speak about working as a curator, I also have a background, obviously, in art history, and I did tons of mistakes as a young curator, let's say. So
Yeah,
obviously you do them, and you don't know, and how to kind of really present the work that's going to do justice to the people that are portrayed, to the photographer, to the whole to communities that are kind of portrayed there. So I think let's also discuss some of the mistakes or missed opportunities. So I think we
oh
all,
man.
I think we all can learn. I think we all can learn from kind of the mistakes that we did along the path, from the opportunities we kind of missed. I know sometimes it's hard to talk about it, but I think it's an open community that kind of really encourages to learning from
Of
failure as
course.
well. Yeah. So, what are some of your biggest mistakes or missed opportunities, and what have they taught you?
Well, that's that's something like we can make a really long list of mistakes actually that we make all the time, or like the missed opportunities. Um, I'll start from that because I often feel the frustration of having missed many opportunities, especially when you have incredible bodies of work in your hand, but maybe you do not have the right place where you can exhibit this work. Maybe you would like to like create a different editing or make larger format pictures, but that's not possible. So I think that what I've learned from these mistakes and this missed opportunity is pausing and waiting and being patient, because I feel like sometimes you really feel the urgency of showing something, and sometimes the urgency is more important than the place, the frames, the prints. You just need to show something because that is the right time to show something. That's urgent. That's an urgent issue. So no matter how you're going to do that, you have to do that. Why sometimes I feel like we just need to wait for the right moment to show something, because I also think that we as curators feel the responsibility of the work that is given to us to be shown. And so I think that that's that's something that we should consider a little bit more. The problem is that we, like the rhythm, right now are very hectic, and again, as we see so many works, and we really have production periods which are very, very short, very strict. Sometimes it's hard to, curate like what we have, allowing the right time to sit, pause, and reflect around what we have. So I think that yeah, one of the biggest mistake is like being rushed all the time, instead of like trying to understand that maybe there's something that, if it cannot like exhibit it today, it can be actually shown like tomorrow under maybe like a different light, and maybe like using a different approach.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Sometimes we feel so also attached to the project or to the topic, and
Yeah.
kind of a sense of urgency, and then this can kind of get away from perhaps, yeah, presenting it in a best possible way, or even, yeah, connecting with more people, connecting with different audiences, with different partners to do it. So yeah, I really understand this struggle, and also the world is as is, and everything is, we're kind of also pressured sometimes to show or to exhibit, or you need to kind of do it, but perhaps, yeah, to feel a bit better the moment, it's as you say, it's very, very important.
Yeah, and the things
um,
that of course need to be shown because they are important. Maybe I think that yeah, we just need to reflect and understand that maybe there's something that we can do just later. actually. And having more time, sometimes it really helps to give justice to what we have in our hands. And I think that the photographers as well, sometimes they are a little bit, like worried when things don't happen, of course, because I understand like their position, and it seems like they don't receive maybe the right recognition. But again, I think that maybe they can probably start to work on something different, and then go back to like their favorite project that they want to see. Because when you have like so many expectations around like something, it really gives a lot of pressure to like all of us working around the project that can probably cause even more mistakes. So yeah, I think that we all need to be like at the same on the same page in order to like get together like towards the goal. I feel like that's really important, and I have to say that we've been blessed, with like incredible relationships with all the photographers that we've had. They're still part of our community, and many of them they still work, for the story, which is something that we value incredibly. You see that they're not there for their ego, they're not there,
Mhm.
for like reaching like the top of their career, but they're just there because they are generous towards the story, toward the people that has given them like so much. Because sometimes we are forced to take from the story without being able to give back to the community. While I think that
Mhm.
there are so many professionals, so many photographers that work with a great work ethic that pushes them to their limits, because they feel like it's incredibly important to tell a story in a specific historical moment, and they do everything they can. So I think that we see that, and we try to recognize that, even when maybe the photography is not like the best of the possibilities that we could show. But I think that encouragement and being able as curators and professionals in the industry to see the talent and give people the possibility of building something, I think that that's extremely important and crucial for the career of young photographers as well as like mid-career photographers.
Yeah, and now I will head to kind of the last one or two questions. I would just encourage again the community to kind of, if you have questions for Laura, please post them in the comments, and we can kind of then add them to the screen later. Or if you will wish to ask in person as well, I'll share a link in a moment so you could come here on what we call a stage. But Laura, yeah, you spoke already quite a bit about kind of what you learned along the path about how to kind of how can photographers give back to the community. That kind of trust is very important. That it's very good if people are polite, if they are kind of clear, concise, and kind of also of having the importance of having your own perspective. And I would also just like to ask you the following question about kind of a bit more, perhaps your personal story. So you've learned a lot of the things along the path. But what advice now from all the experience and all the inspiration and all the different approaches and projects you've seen, what is the advice that you would give to your younger self? It can be very personal, it can be professional, but yeah, something that really speaks to you.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I'm a very practical person, and I try to do as much as I can, sometimes too much. So, getting a little bit older, I got like a bit wiser, and I think that, as we said before, I would allow myself to have a little bit more time to work on issues, to work on exhibits, to work on the like in general strategy related to what we show, how we show it, and what we can do for the photographer. So I think that yeah, I'm just like trying to. I always like tell that to the photographers, but I always like tell that to myself as well. To be a little bit more patient because I sometimes like try to rush things, and that's sometimes it was good. In some other occasions, it was not at all actually. So yeah, probably I would say to myself to be a little bit more patient.
Yeah, I think in today's world, I think everyone would need a bit more of patience. So I think we can
Yeah,
all I think we can all wish for more patience and time. I think these are really the two things that in today's world are really difficult. Let's say it's hard to take the time or to
yeah,
have time for kind of introspection, for depth, for research, for or just as you said, you also get inspired by books, by poetry, by reading, by visiting places. I think yeah, to get time to go out of this kind of world we are in
yeah,
and to get different perspectives, it's where sometimes the
yeah.
magic happens.
Yeah, I think in this like very productive world, we feel like wasting time sometimes, while I feel allowing ourselves, the like moments in order to randomly run into things that can be inspirational even for our professional life. Again, it's always very difficult to do that because we are pushed to be, like proactive and productive and like being on the run all the time. But sometimes slow labs, like it could help us to focus more, actually.
And perhaps just if you can share, it's not a question we have prepared, but what's kind of the last moment of this kind of stillness, let's call it, or a bit introspection that you had that kind of made you more creative, or that you had a different something click perhaps in this moment of a bit withdrawing from the work and the intensity of the project.
Yeah, like every year, in like December, I just try to do that. I just like try to have moments where I don't and with like photographers or photography and I kind of like immerse myself in any other like form of art in order to yeah, like in January I want to just like I feel like I'm a little bit like a child discovering things in a different way because I just like try to keep everything else away, everything else that keeps my days very busy because I again I just feel like we need to underline the importance of like remembering that we're extremely lucky like doing the work that we do, even if it's difficult, even if we don't really have like so many resources, and so we struggle, there's a lot of frustration, but we still are in a position where we have the privilege to see stories, to learn so much about the world, getting to know people and how they are trying to have an impact. And so we are trying like to be on the good side of history, So I think that we are in touch again with incredible human beings. So I think that we are very lucky. But when you do this kind of job, you are immersed like every single minute of your life. So even if you're doing something else, you always look at the professional side of exploiting that information that you got or the story that you read on the paper. So for photographers as well as for like people in the industry, it's like a non-stop activity, but that's because driven by passion. And I don't feel like, I would probably be in a position where there's something that I don't like to do because when it happened in my career, I just like worked hard, I studied, and in order not to be in that position and move forward. So I think that it's another suggestion that I would probably give, to like people in the audience to like not waste a minute. And again, like if there's something that we have to do just because we have to do it and it happens to all of us, just try to work hard in order to change that, because life is precious and we should like use it for something meaningful and something that is really, really close to our heart.
Yeah, that's a wonderful advice for our community. Just for everyone, just so you know, I posted a link to StreamYard if you want to join us in a discussion with Laura. So if you want to ask her a question, you can kind of click that link and join us in this studio that we have. I saw that Roa Al Qasir, our alumna from Syria, she's also a filmmaker, asked the question that you partially already answered in the pitching part. So, what things are curators or editors looking for in a story pitch to invest time in? And I know you already spoke about original or like original style, in-depth research. But yeah, perhaps there's something additional that you want to share with Roa that would kind of still, uh, yeah, even like support
Yeah,
what
Rua, thank you. Yeah, Rua, thank you so much for the question. Um, well, it's like every year we receive very different kind of submissions, and sometimes I have to say that the way the work is presented like really makes a difference, because maybe the scene stories related to that specific project, but again, the way you like graciously present the story, the way you include the sources, of your research, facts and figures, like something that can help us understand a little bit more. Of course, like presenting maybe like in diptychs, or presenting, like focusing on like a peculiarity of a frame, or something related to again like the style or the approach that you use, that can help us to understand if it's something new or something that we've already seen. I feel like the abstract is very important when we see submissions, portfolios, because sometimes the visual does not respond to what's in the story, in the introductory text, or in the abstract. And I think that like photographers really need to have a very clear idea about what they want to say with the story, because sometimes they have something in their head but they are not able to translate it visually, or maybe there's like a problem in the editing, the sequence. So I think that all these things really need to be like considered when sending a pitch, especially because, as we said before, we don't really have a lot of time. So you really need to impress us, which I know is not always easy, because, of course, there are like a few technical like things that we might look at, but it's also very subjective. Maybe if I show it to like another member of our artistic direction or the founder of the festival, I mean, we normally have very different ideas actually. So yeah, that's the reason why we are the three of us. So we can actually, kind of compensate of the things that likes in each other.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have team members to really see
Totally.
things in a really different perspective, because you can be so engaged with the story because of your background, because of what's your system of values, what's important, and then it's interesting to always discuss and
Yeah.
to
Yeah, I can add, Mika, that what I also like when I see pitches is maybe like discovering something that is not like so well known in our country, because one of the um, like mission of the festival is also like informing people and like showing what's happening. So I like to have very small stories related maybe like to a region or a city, which can find like representation in our festival, because I think that also that is like everybody has to learn from that, from this experience, because I think the way like people could receive something in our country is very different from like another, or maybe like the country where the story was actually shot. So I think that it's it's good to receive something that maybe for the photographers themselves might not be incredibly interesting because it's something that maybe they grew up with. But for us, if it's something specific, it's always incredibly interesting, because I think that it's also good to create together with the photographer a way of showing it and displaying it differently so that it can reach, because that's something that we often have to do. Like we take things for granted as curators, as photographers, and I think that it's very important, like not to do that. Trying to be explicit, try to understand, because I think that if someone already knows something, no problem, you just like skip whatever you're not interested or whatever you don't really need to read. But if you don't know that, it's like for me when I'm in front of like a modern like art sculpture, I don't always have the tools, to understand, because in Italy, we are not like a lot about that, except if you like studied in a, art school. So like from high school, we like know a lot about Renaissance, and so we are just like immersed in that, and we are so surrounded by art and like churches, and so we don't feel like everything else that is out of like our context. So I think that that's also something important, representation, but representation according to the audience that you have in front of you. And again, building a bridge, it's always something great, because I think that you don't really take anything out from that. You add, and if you need it, you use it. If you don't need it, just, do with your own background.
Yeah, I think that's interesting to hear for our community. I think they would also be interested probably to know if they can only pitch a story to you by applying to the World Report Award, or if is there a possibility also to pitch a story for an exhibition apart aside from World Report Award? Because we have now you're saying that the diversity and different perspectives are very important to you, and I think we have community members from 135, if not more, countries. So obviously it's very diverse. There's a lot
Yeah.
of really different stories coming from those places. So maybe just a question on, yeah, how can they reach you, or do they have to apply for the award, or is there another kind of way to be in touch?
Of course, they can always like pitch their stories and reach the like artistic direction of the festival, because as we said, we receive like stories all the time. And other than the festival, we also curate other exhibits all over Italy, and we are trying to amplify the work of the photographers that were already like in the panels of the artists exhibited at the festival, but we're also working with new photographers all the time, because maybe we have other initiatives or themed festivals that we like themed mini festivals that we organize in other areas. So of course you are always welcome to send us the material. The World Record Award is the opportunity to show the work not only to the artistic direction of the festival, but also to like a panel of professionals. We often have photo editors. We sometimes invite photographers like this here. Sometimes we have like people who retired, but they're still in the industry and they're still like part of our community. So it's just like professionals that can help, to like empower your work. And if you want like a different perspective, of course, I think it's important to work with editors as well, because from our perspective, we just like try to create a network, of course. And so if we see something interesting, we of course submit it to editors. But for us, like the main purpose is creating exhibits. I also have to tell you a very like interesting detail about how we select work and like what we exhibit in the end. So I have to say that 70% of the photographers that we exhibit at the festival are not from Italy. So they are from foreign countries, because again, we just like try to bring stories that help people reflect about what's happening in the world. And even if like these stories happen very far away from Lodi, our city, we feel like there's still a connection in a certain way. And so we love to like draw this parallel with the stories. And of course, we also work with Italian photographers or that like cover stories related to our country, as well as photographers that are Italians, but maybe they are in other locations because they are like following other kind of issues. But I have to say that this is a very, very international festival, and again, we are very available to see work, even if not like completed, or even if there's still like something to be adjusted. I think that that's also something that we can do together. It's something that maybe can be like we can suggest like what could be done for a festival or for a grant. It's not something that we can always do because of lack of time, but of course, like when we can, when we see like a potential, we really love to do that. So in all the initiatives where we participate, which could be portfolio reviews in Italy as well as abroad, we just try to follow some of the people in order to like support them. And of course, we don't always have the answers, but we just try actually.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And well, I know you've been sharing with our community already because you've been one of the reviewers in our online reviews, and then Alberto Prina, your colleague and the festival director,
Yeah,
he's been with us in person last year at the reviews in Arles. So I'm really grateful you share kind of your knowledge, your advice also through portfolio reviews. So I do wish you can join us again this year, perhaps in person. Let's discuss it.
yeah,
But I want to say, well, first, thank you. We're already a bit like over time, and it's always so lovely to talk to you. So I never like keep a good track of time. But I'll just say, if there's like still one question in the community, we can still take one question. If not, I will slowly close the session. So Roa is saying thank you so much, Laura and Nika. So thank you, Roa, for being here.
thank
I
you.
always love to see names that are kind of with us in the events that are very yeah, they kind of come to a lot of sessions, and I think it's great that you can be with us, Rua, for more sessions. I know you've been in the workshop the last time, so it's always great to see the some names here. Carolina, thank you for attending. Also saying thank you to the both of us. But yeah, I want to first really thank to Laura because you are always so generous with us, Laura. We love kind of listening to you. You really kind of yeah, I really feel it from you that you really care for the field, for photographers, for so many topics that are currently happening in the world, to really try to bring that to life and to do it justice, to represent it in a really good way, and to just give the best to the audience, because I think yeah, audience is also our kind of yeah, those that we share the stories with, and so important, and to kind of
Yeah,
present it to them in a way that you and the photographer want, and that will do justice and honor the story. I think it's very important. So I'm really grateful you can share all the insight with us and with our community. Yeah, thank you, Laura.
thank you, Nika. Thank you so much. It's always great to be with the Seven family. Thank you.